Great, y'all, welcome back. I already have my artboard set up to a 5 by 5 for this particular lecture, and we're going to be going over lecture 2.2, which is in correlation to lab 2.2. And in this one, we're actually going to be um, sort of tracing again, but this time we're going to do something a little bit more advanced. We're going to trace over SpongeBob SquarePants. So like I already said, I've got my 5 by 5 artboard here already. I'm just going to make SpongeBob as big within that artboard as I possibly can. Over here, something kind of cool is that you can actually sort of do math within Illustrator. You can just put 5 inches and it'll automatically size. So if I have it smaller, I could put 5 inches and it'll automatically size it. You can also use your alignment tools up here. You have horizontal align center, vertical align center, just to make sure that everything is nice and squared up before we move forward. From there, we want to do exactly what we did on the last assignment, where we come into our layers right here, and I'm going to change this to reference image. There we go. We've got that. We're going to lock it down just like we did before. Some tools that I want to go over. I'm going to create a second layer here. That way we can sort of work with them. And I'm going to call this one artwork. There we go. So now we've got our layers all set up. I want to go over a couple of additional tools. We already went over artboards. We already went over layers a little bit. We talked about the selection tool and direct selection tool, along with the pen tool, as well as fill and stroke. So none of that should be new to you. But this time, I do want to introduce you a little bit to the text tool. That's T on the keyboard, or it's this guy right up here. You're not going to need the text tool for this particular assignment, but if you wanted to use the text tool, you can just draw a text box like this and type in it like you normally would. From there, you can resize the text box to be whatever you need. If you can't see the text, it's probably that your text size is too large and you need to make the text box bigger. From there, you can also double click on this little guy right here, scale the text up or down. When you scale text, it is important that you hold Shift. And what that does is it makes it to where the text does not get squished or squashed. We want to do this typically with logos as well. Same thing when we come over to scale SpongeBob potentially. Typography, you're going to learn a little bit about this in Module 3, but typography is a very fastidious thing within design. And if you squish the typography, it makes designers like us very mad. So don't squish or squash typography. Hold Shift when you're scaling those things because it'll scale those things proportionally. So we talked a little bit about the text tool. There's a couple of different ways that you can do it. You've got type on a path, which let's say that I had a shape. We're going to go over how to add shapes here in a little bit. But then I can use my type on a path tool and it'll type along that path. I can pull it in if I want it to be on the inside of that path. Excuse me. Or I can pull it out if I want it to be on the outside of that path. If I only want it to be in a certain area of that path, I can actually rotate it around like this. So now it's kind of centered. You can even still use your text alignment tools up here to align it to center. So if I wanted this to say, if I wanted to do this, I could also copy and paste it. So Command C, Command F if you want to paste in place, or Command C, Command V if you want to paste elsewhere. So know that it's over here now. Here I'm going to do Command C, Command F, and then I'm going to pull it underneath like that. It's almost Father's Day here, so we'll say, there we go. So you can do pretty cool stuff with type on a path. We don't need that for this particular assignment. You can create vertical type. So a little bit hard to read, but that's one thing that you can do. All of your fonts or typeface selection tools are going to be up here. So if we want Helvetica, we can change the font there. We want Pyrus, there it is. Be really mindful about the fonts that you choose. There's a couple of fonts that really upset us designers. Papyrus is one of them. Comic Sans is another. Trajan, Impact, Miriam, uh, Arial, basically any default font or font that is a little over designed like this, you can pretty much avoid. Try to stick with a good list of serif and sans serif fonts. Try to stay away from script or cursive fonts unless the occasion directly calls for it. Retain legibility above all else. Um, from there, let's talk a little bit about shape tools. Right over here, you have a number of different shape tools. Right now, mine shows an ellipse. I believe the standard is the rectangle tool. For any of these tools that have little drop arrows here, you can click and hold in order to access these submenus. The ones that you will probably need out of this menu the most are obviously the rectangle tool and the ellipse tool. From there, you can also use the polygon tool if you want to create things like triangles or multi-sided shapes, and then maybe the star tool, but the star tool is pretty rare. I would say your three most common are going to be the rectangle tool, which is M on the keyboard, the ellipse tool, which is L on the keyboard, and the polygon tool, which does not have a keyboard command, but you could make one for it. I'm not going to show you how to do that, but that's something that you can look up through Adobe. So starting with the rectangle tool, there's a couple of things that you should know when you are creating shapes. The first one is that shapes are free flowing. You don't need to do anything. You just click and drag. From there, there's a couple of things that you can do. If you want the shape to be even on all sides, let's say I want this to be a perfect square and not a rectangle. What I can do is I can hold shift. Again, what that does is it scales it proportionally. It's going to make something very perfect. Hold shift on the keyboard if you're ever wanting perfection. It's a good way to think about it. From there, let's say that I want to expand. Notice how this shape is sort of expanding from where I originally clicked in that top left corner there. If I would instead like for it to expand from the center, I can hold Option and then expand it the way that I need it to. Let me move that a little bit so that you can see it a little bit better. So here I can click and drag and it'll scale from the corner, but if I hold Option, it'll scale from the center. And then if I want to combine those, and let's say I want a perfectly scaled square from the center, I just have to hold Shift. So you can combine those keyboard commands in order to kind of give you what you're looking for here. All right, the next one is the ellipse tool, which is L on the keyboard. Same principles apply. It's going to be free flowing. This is where it might make a little bit more sense to scale from the center. We're going to do this a little bit with SpongeBob here. But we can use this shape. We can use it free flowing, or if I hold shift, I can make it a perfect circle. So watch for those things. Polygons get a little bit more difficult. You can select the polygon, click, and you can specify the number of sides. So if you want a triangle, 3 sides would obviously make the most sense. From here, you can squish it, you can squash it, you can scale it perfectly if you would like, holding Option and Shift from the middle, or just Shift to keep it perfect. Those are really most of what you need to know when you're making shapes. One thing to note with the star is the best way to draw this is just draw it naturally. You can hold Option, but it's always going to scale from the center. So no matter what, if you hold Option, it's actually going to change the shape of the star as opposed to it being sort of pulled in like that. This is typically the star shape that most people want, not this. So here I'm holding Option, here I am not. So just some things to look out for there. I'm going to get rid of that. Moving on from shapes, we're going to talk about the shape builder tool. Let's say that I've got 3 circles and I sort of want to build a shape out of this. What I can do, I'm going to make each circle a different color. That way you can see a little bit better what I'm doing here. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Actually, see, okay, so even though I held Option Shift on making that circle, it came out a little lopsided. So I'm actually going to make a new one. There we go. And then So now let's say that I wanted to sort of merge the middle three of these shapes. Let's say I want this kind of floral thing in the middle here. I can use what's called the shape builder tool, and it is always escaping me. Why can't I find it? That's pre-transform. Where did they put it? Oh no, I can't seem to find it. Well, that's okay. Actually, this is a really great time to talk about this thing. I'll come back to that. Doink. Let me shut that down. Go away. There we go. If you ever cannot find something, you've got this little help thing up here. Type in what it is that you're looking for. And oftentimes it's a little slow, but this is the shape you're looking for, right? So over here, it's actually tucked under this guy. There's my shape builder, and we can see that the quick command is Shift M. So if you're ever like, oh, I'm not quite sure where to find something, use that help module. It is helpful. That is why it's there. So now I've got my shape builder selected. Let me actually first select all those shapes. Then I can come back to my shape builder tool. And notice that I get this little hatch pattern when I hover over certain things. If I click and draw in there, it's actually going to combine those shapes. So now I can come in here and I can delete these. That was the shape I wanted. Now we're good. Cool. So that's really what the shape builder tool is. You can use it to combine shapes in a number of different ways. So if I instead didn't want the center part there, and maybe I just wanted the outer parts to be combined or united, I can click here, maybe go here, 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 and then here. And what that's going to do is it's going to leave that little bit out in the middle, sort of a weird way to do it. But those are things that you can do. So shape builder, super, super helpful. Moving on from there, you've got the rotate tool. So let's say that I've got a square. Oops. Like that. And instead of it being a square, I want it to be a diamond. I can select this shape, come over here to my rotate tool or hit R on the keyboard, and then I can rotate it. So there we've got a diamond. Now, as you are rotating, if you want those rotations to be perfect at, I believe it's 90 degrees. Yep. Guess what key you hold? Nothing new. Again, if you want perfection, what do you hold? You hold Shift. So there it's 90 degrees horizontal, 90 degrees clockwise, 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 clockwise. You get the picture. So now it's locking in our rotations at 90 degrees. Another interesting thing that you can do with the rotate tool is if you hit rotate and then come over here, you see this little blue point there. If you don't want it to rotate from the center, you can move that point. Let's say I want it to rotate from up here. Now I can rotate it around that axis. I can even hit enter and specify the number of degrees to which I want it to rotate. So if I want it to rotate only 45 degrees or half of 90 degrees, I can do that. I could even do 45 divided by 2, and it'll do 22.5. So you can actually do math within Illustrator too. It's quite nice. Talked about the rotate tool a little bit. Let's talk about the eyedropper tool. So we have a lot of color here within SpongeBob. Something you might find to be helpful is just outside the artboard, maybe make a couple of rectangles like this. Whoops. We'll talk about corner widgets in a bit. We've got yellow. We've got a couple of different colors here. So let's just make a couple swatches. I'm going to overdo it. The way that I just duplicated those was I did Command D on the keyboard, Command or Control D. That stands for duplicate. And what I can do is I can hit I on the keyboard to get my eyedropper tool. And I can just start going through and selecting some of the unique colors that I see here. These are pretty darn close. I'll bet you they're mostly the same. That's A6A, A3B, A48, A4B. Those are pretty darn close. I'll bet you they are the same. I just selected 2 different pixels because, again, we're working with raster-based artwork here because it's pixelated to begin with, but we're trying to convert it to vector-based artwork. So really, those colors are the same. I just probably selected a different pixel. So we don't need another one of those colors. We can get SpongeBob's main color. We can get this guy, which is a little bit different. Maybe his eyes, his eyelashes, his irises, or his, I think that's what they call that. That's an iris. He's got this red color right there, as well as this like pink color down here, which looks to be a little different from his tongue. I believe this red and this red are the same, so we're going to leave that. Need a couple more swatches here, so let me duplicate. Let's see, what colors have I missed? We've got his shorts. We've got this white's probably about the same as that, but this one's definitely different. It's got some blue in there. This brown's a little different. Yep, that looks to be about it as far as color goes. Maybe I'll find a couple more. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these. Maybe I'll pull these guys over here. Doink. Let's put the blues together just to kind of keep our work a little bit organized, you know? There's that. Maybe we've got the reds organized. We've got our monos or our blacks and whites organized. And then here we'll maybe go from light to dark. Cool. So here's really our color palette. We've got this grouping of yellows, got this grouping of blues, got a grouping of reds, some browns, like that, and then sort of our monochromatic colors. So SpongeBob's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Roughly 12 colors. I might be a little bit off there. But let's go ahead and just organize these really quick. Boink, just like that. Now we've got our color palettes. We can even come in here and we can horizontally align so that these are all evenly spaced, like that. Perfect. Let's do the same thing vertically, like so. Grab these three, align them to the bottom here. Voila, there we go. That's our color palette. Now, something that you can do now that we've talked about the eyedropper tool, you've got all these color swatches up here. We're not going to be using any of these. We want to make sort of our own color palette. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to scroll down to select all unused. It's going to select basically all your colors. Just delete them. You won't need them. Not for this assignment. I can create a new folder and I can call it Sponge SquarePants. Perfect. Now, as I go through, I can sort of select this color. And actually, I'm going to approach it a little bit differently. I'm going to come over to these swatches. You might need to activate some of these windows. If you need to do that, come up here to window and look for what it is that you're trying to find. Here, you would be looking for swatches. Right here, it's that guy. If it's unchecked, you may not have it. So just keep an eye out for it. Again, I want swatches, so I'm going to click that. You can even pull it out while you're working on it so that it sort of sticks to your artboard here, and then you can put it back pretty easily later. I like to work with it like this, so it's totally up to you. First, I'm going to add all of my reds, and I'm going to put it in this folder down here. Select this guy, and all I'm doing here is I'm clicking and dragging. You can see where you're dragging it to because there's a little blue line there. So I'm just going to come in and I'll add all of my colors here. Just like this. Got my blues. There's another blue. Get our browns in here. Oops, didn't grab that one. There we go. Here we'll grab this brown. Being a little fussy. There we go. And then we'll get our white and our black. Now, you might ask, why am I not using this white and black? Well, they might be a little bit different. So let's see. Here, our white is a little off-white. It's FD, FD, FD. So just slightly off-white, a little touch of gray versus this guy, which is stark white. It's full F. So they are a little different. Same thing with the blacks. This one here, it's got a little bit of warmth to it, a little bit of magenta in that black, versus this one, which is going to be just like a plain old stark black. 141213, 141213. Actually, those are, did I even change this? There we go. Now it's almost totally stark black. It's actually kind of off black. It's a little in the gray. So we do want to use the color selections from here so that the colors appear to be accurate based on the color. There are scientists who have spent a lot of time figuring out the exact right colors to use on SpongeBob SquarePants. So don't mess with the science. Let it be what it is. Now, there are going to be a couple of things that we can do in here. We can even come up here and change the name of these colors. So maybe it's SpongeBob Pink 1, SpongeBob Pink 2, SpongeBob Red, SpongeBob Yellow. You don't have to do that, but sometimes it's helpful. For example, in one of my projects, let me go here. In one of my projects, I've got this brand style guide where I've got several different colors here and I've given them names. So in my files here, I've given it a swatch name of Alpine because it matches with my style guide. I've also made it a spot color. And the reason that that's actually pretty cool is that you'll notice that I've used that green as my text color, right? So if for whatever reason the client comes back to me and they're like, you know what, we hate this color, we need to change it, it needs to be a little bit lighter. Okay, no problem. As long as I've made it a spot and global color, I can come in here and say, great, you want it to be orange or yellow? Let's go yellowish green. Great, I can update that. And anywhere where that color, obviously I didn't apply it to everything, but anywhere where that color has been applied, it'll update for me automatically just based on having that selected as a global color. So there it is without, there it is with. So helps save a little bit of time if you do it right the first time around. So I'm actually going to go ahead and do that in this particular assignment because who knows, maybe I'll need to change the color. I'm just going to make it a global color. I'm not going to make it a spot color. So I'll go through, double click, check all of these off. Here we go. Just make each of these a global color. Takes a little bit of time, but it's better than having to go through at the very end and say, oh, shoot, that's the wrong color. I need to change it. And then all of a sudden, having to go through and find each of those individual colors. I know a shortcut, but most people don't. So this will save you time and keep you going quickly. Because again, remember, we're always against a deadline, right? So now all of those are global colors. Now we can really start working with SpongeBob here. And one of the things that I usually like to do is I like to start with the pen tool. And I really just recommend going around the outside of SpongeBob and getting his silhouette right. And we're going to do that with the pen tool. So really the important part is just figure out where you want to start, somewhere that feels easy. Personally, I like to start with harder corners, something like this down here that's a little bit right angled, and then just picking a direction. I usually like working around to the right, sort of going in a, I guess that would be a counterclockwise direction. So here I'm just going to click and drag to get my anchor points. I'll come down here. And this is going to take time. Be patient with yourself. Give yourself an adequate amount of time to do this particular lab because it is not easy. You're going to see roughly how long it's going to take me. And trust me, I've been doing this for a while. So if you are unfamiliar with Illustrator, or this may be your first time using it, be prepared for it to take you, I don't know, maybe a couple of hours. It really just depends on how familiar you are with Illustrator. So here I'm just kind of following the curves. Remember, you don't need perfection just yet. You can always come back and refine these a little bit later. Not necessarily looking for a specific amount of points here. I just want it to look as accurate as possible. So there, here I'm actually going to come around like that. And you might have some more anchor points than I do. That's totally fine. The measure of good illustration is not always the number of anchor points that you have, although having less anchor points is generally best. And what you don't want is you don't want like really choppy like this, right? Every point needs to have a toggle. And when I say toggle, it's these things. So make sure that you've got a point. When you have a point, that you have a toggle on either side of that point. Even if it's like a 90-degree angle, you can still use a toggle there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to trace this outline here, and I'll probably speed up the video so you don't have to watch me make every single point, but we'll see you back here in just a second. Just relax, enjoy, and maybe try following along. All right, we're back. As you can see, I kind of finished out the pen path there. And something I really want to stress here is I want you guys really to focus on getting comfortable with using the pen tool. Sure, you might be able to use the pencil tool and be able to get it done a little bit faster, but it's not going to be as precise, and you're going to have way more anchor points. So get really comfortable with using the pen tool to make those paths way, way, way more accurate. So really spend your time, try to get that done up. I'm not looking for perfection here, but when you look at it, that already, you don't need much more than that to get a quick idea that you're looking at SpongeBob, right? So already we are off to a really, really strong start. There's a couple of things that we're going to need to do in order to separate it, but we've got the silhouette here, and that's really what matters. Frankly, I probably could have done this a little bit differently, where maybe I separated it here, but we're going to add some shapes over top of it, and having the silhouette's going to be good enough for us to eventually cut it out. So now that I've got the outline, I'm going to start working on like some of these internal shapes a little bit, just to sort of see where that gets us. So again, I'm just going to pick a spot, use the pen tool. Let's get SpongeBob's main outline here, and then we'll sort of move on to the rest. Something that I found as a little shortcut here is rather than like drawing each of these lines in or each of these waves in individually, I just go to the end of one wave and then I'll sort of come back and refine the other. Really helps so that it doesn't feel like you're sort of micro adjusting the waves, just because SpongeBob has a little bit of an irregular shape. So already trying to, as you go, try to find efficiencies as you're working with it. How could you do the same thing in less points, right? Maybe here, I'm actually going to try something a little different, where maybe I do this and then bring this guy in just a bit, like that. Then over here, maybe we pull it out. I think you get the idea. So I'm going to sort of speed this section of the video up again, and we'll see you back here in a second. We've got SpongeBob's sort of inner silhouette there now added. And really quick, something that I should point out, if you hit Command or Control Y on your keyboard, it can help to sort of see the line work that you already have on the page. You can toggle back out of that by hitting Command Y again. And that's just called Outline Preview. So you can even do the same thing by coming up here and going to View and then going to Outline. That's it. So Command Y or Control Y. I want to get some of these slightly easier features in, kind of like some of these spots or holes in his face, as well as sort of the shape of the eye. I'm going to start with the shape of the eye. I'm just going to use my ellipse tool here. I'm going to click and drag, And again, it's not going to be perfect on your first application, so you can just come in here and adjust it. His eyes are actually a little bit uh, ovular in a strange way. So I might have to rotate it and work with it a little bit in order to get it in the right spot. Again, I'm not quite worried about how his cheek overlays his eyes there. We'll go in and we'll fix that in a bit, but here's that. Let's resize a little bit. There we go. Get a little bit more on this side, a little bit higher over here. Perfect. Okay, so now we've got that. Something that I want to show you guys that becomes really, really helpful, especially when designing things like this or like icons, things like that. Notice how SpongeBob's got these black outlines around his eye. You could very easily make that just using either another shape or using a stroke. But what I want to show you guys is actually something called a offset path. It gives you another way to work with these things. Something that I'm pretty commonly known for is you're not a professional until you can show me 10 different ways to do the same thing. So here, like, yeah, I can come in here and I can add a black stroke and I can increase the weight of that stroke a little bit. I can even come over to these stroke lines here and I can make sure that it's on the outside and sort of beef it up until it feels right. Sure, that's one way that you can do it, but another way that you can do it, let me revert that back. Another way that you can do it is come up here to Object, Path, Offset Path. And here you can go 0.0125. Let's start there. And you can see the offset there. So it needs to be a little bit bigger, but we're pretty close. Let's try 0.2. Let's try 0.303. That's pretty close. Let's go 0.025. Yeah, that's about right. Once I hit OK there, I can come up here. I can make it the black that we've used. And all of a sudden, this is actually its own shape. If I get rid of that, there's a shape underneath that. That's how I prefer to illustrate, because then you can sort of go in and refine it later. I can even come over here and I can do the exact same thing. And I can go path, offset path. It's already got my number in there from before. Hit OK. Make it black. It just gives you something a little bit more to work with. And you're going to see how this becomes really beneficial in a little bit, because what I like to try to do is not use stroke whenever possible, because it can be hard to identify when you made a shape, oh, was that supposed to be a stroke or was it supposed to be a fill? Because as you can see right now, I'm not exactly designing with color. I'm just going in and I'm adding my individual shapes, and then I'm going to go in and apply the color later. That way, I'm sort of designing unobstructed, and I can see everything that I'm working with so that I don't miss anything. Okay, so now what I can do is I can come in and I can make another circle for his eyeball here. Sort of expand that. And really all these is a series of layered circles, right? So there's our first one. The nice thing is that offset path also works in the other direction too. If I wanted to make this a little bit smaller, I can go Object, Path, oops, not outline stroke, my bad, Object, Path, Offset Path, and now I can go the other direction. I can say negative 0.025, and as long as I have preview selected, it's going to show me where that's landing inside that circle. So maybe I don't need the 5 here. Yeah, that's about right. Okay. And then, so now we've got our 2 lines there. Let's try making another one. Object, path, offset path. And here I'm going to do like 0.25. That's too small. 0.125. Still too small. Okay, so 0.075. Pretty close. Let's try 0.05. Close enough. So now that I've got that shape in there, I can sort of nudge it over, bring it down a little bit. Bring this in a little bit. And all of a sudden, if I were to go in here and start applying color, start with the black and the blue, then black again, then white. Oops, that was the wrong one. White. Must have did it here. Yep. There we go. And then here we'd go black again. All of a sudden, that looks a heck of a lot like SpongeBob's eye, right? I can even take these guys like this, and I can pull it over here. We can pretty much tell that that's SpongeBob's eye. I can even come over here and say, all right, let's just take these guys and duplicate it over here. Now, that doesn't quite work because he's looking a little bit of another way. So I can actually use my opacity here to say, all right, let's pull this pupil in just a little bit and sort of align it. So once you do the work once, you don't necessarily have to do it again. Just make sure to go back and refine this a little bit. Select all your shapes, set it to 100%. There we go. Again, I'm going to continue working with no fill. That way I can see what I'm working on. But now we've got our eyes in, right? We can see that there. I can also come in and I can start adding eyelashes. So let's use my marquee tool, rectangle tool. And this is where the rotate comes in, right? I know where this point wants to go, so I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to get my rotate tool, and I'm going to put the point right there so that I can rotate this in just a little bit. Keep going. That's about right. Now, something else that I can do, notice how these like taper in just a little bit. I can get my scale tool, wherever it is. There it is, S on the keyboard. I can direct select these 2 points, go to my scale tool or hit S on the keyboard, and then just pull those in a little bit. And it's scaling are these two, not these two. So there we have one eyelash, and then add this guy. Oops. Marquee, Command Z, it's your best friend. Do the same thing up here. This one, we need to pull this guy in. This one's pretty close. Yeah, so we'll leave that. Again, we'll do this guy over here. Rectangle tool. Rotate from here. And pull it back just a hair. No pun intended. I'm going to make it a little bit wider. Direct selection tool, pull this guy in. There we go. I'm not too worried about the bottom of this shape because we're going to use the eyes later to cut out of the eyelashes. So there we go. We've got that already. Let's work on these ones. You could also use the pen tool here if you wanted. Might be a little bit easier. So again, not a professional until you can show me 10 ways to do the same thing. There we go. SpongeBob's eyelashes are a little unhinged. So there we go. We've got those in there. Now, for the most part, his eyes are pretty much done. Now what we can work on is maybe like this corner piece here, this little corner squiggle. So maybe I'll start at the top, like this, and just work my way down. Work through the squiggle. Again, pen tool, shapes tools, things like that. Things that give you less anchor points. That's what you want. You want as few anchor points as possible because those anchor points are data and they make your file size bigger, not much bigger, but it's also just another spot for something to go wrong. And we want to try to eliminate those variables as much as we possibly can so that these files are easy for our clients to use. Okay. Or for us to come back to and use later. Sometimes I'll make an illustration and I'll be like, what the heck was I doing there? So the more simple that you can make something, the better. All right, there we go. Now we got our squiggle in. Let's start working on some of these like much more difficult shapes. These sort of extremities here. The mouth is going to be pretty difficult too. So you know what? Let's just finish out the face. Let's get this crescent shape in there. We're going to need that later. This is probably going to be something a little bit challenging to work with. So I'm just going to plug it in like this. And again, remember, this is like throwing a football, right? You're just passing it to your team over the hill. That's it. Just like this. Oops. There we go. Let's come in and fix this guy a little bit. There we go. This guy can come out just a little. Same thing here. Perfect. There we go. So now we've got his little cheek area there. His mouth is going to be challenging. Same with his nose. So here's what I would recommend. I would recommend let's start on the inside of this black line where we're kind of tracing from here. Once we get to pathfinding, we may revise the way we come about this, but yeah, I think this is going to be the best way. So we're just going to go around his nose here, like that, come into the point. Again, if once you're in these like acute angles, hold Option to pull that anchor point back, come down here, get that in there, Option to pull that anchor point back. There we go. I'm going to make this side a little bit smaller, bring that in a little, up around the curve like that. Bring that down. So none of this is easy. It takes time in order to do it right. But this is why we get paid the big bucks, is because we did it right in the first place. All right, there we go. Now he's got this big, wide open mouth. Point here. And we can make our curve. Pull this down a little further, like that. Come around here. There we go. All right. I'm going to finish out this mouth section here. So while I do this, go ahead and enjoy. Sit back. I'm going to speed it up and enjoy. Okay, we're back. You actually saw me do something a little funky there, and I'm going to tell you why is because we've already got the outlines for the eye here, so I didn't need to continue going up and around the eye because I've already got that shape there. So what I'm going to use is the eye to cut that sort of black shape out there, and that's going to be really all we need. From there, I'm just going to go in and start filling out these shapes and we'll be pretty much good. So again, just kick back, relax, enjoy. All right, coming back in. Now I'm just using the marquee tool or the rectangle tool to fill in his teeth. And I'm going to bring this guy down just a little bit. There we go. Same thing on this side. Marquee tool. Be careful not to use R on the keyboard. I do that all the time just because that's what Figma's keyboard shortcut is. So don't get Figma's keyboard shortcuts confused with Illustrator's. And already that looks pretty darn good. There's a little funkiness happening up here, but I told you we would fix that in a little bit. Now we can start working on some of these extremities. Like this hand is going to be a little bit challenging to work with. But here's the good news. Once we get it done, it'll be done. We don't have to worry about it too much. Something that I want to point out is watch out for these areas right here. We worked on the silhouette, but we didn't exactly cut this guy off. So we're going to have to come in and fill this in a little bit. We'll get there in a little bit, but let's start like this. Let's start a little bit beyond so that we can start working on this sleeve here. I'm just going to fill this in. Again, we're just using the pen tool as much as we possibly can. Not trying to be overly perfect because you won't get it there. It's a raster image that you're turning into a vector. So if anything, your drawing is going to be more perfect than the image just because you're working in vector. Once I get to like these hands here, or these arms, then just take it little bit by little bit. You'll be absolutely fine once you get it there. When in doubt, add another anchor point. That's kind of a good way to go about it. If you're not able to achieve the right curve, come back, add another anchor point. All right, see you back here in a sec. All right, so we've got the arms drawn in there. Now I want to come in and kind of fill out some of these spots that I know are missing. We've got this outline here. We need to add an outline down at the bottom that kind of comes up to this area, and then we'll sort of cut it off in the middle so that we can use other shapes to cut it out. But really what I'm looking to do is fill in this sort of bottom sort of olive green color down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably just start it right here because I can use the sleeve to sort of cut that off. And then from there, I'm just going to work my way around here. And you're going to see what I mean when we go to put this all together. So one of my recommendations might be watch this video all the way through and then sort of use it to help you come back and follow along with it. Don't try to do everything all at once. Just be patient. It takes time to learn this stuff. Know that that is absolutely normal. I'm not just saying that. It took me forever to learn how to do this. And I used to get really, really frustrated with one of my professors who taught me how to use Illustrator because I was like, I have no idea what you mean. I don't know what you mean by hold Option to curve the anchor point. Like none of that made sense to me. So just be okay with the learning curve. It'll come to you with time. That is really the only way to do it. Great. I'm going to pull this down here. Let me see where I'm at up there. Yeah, I got that. Okay. Perfect. So now we've got that shape in there. Now we can sort of start working on his pants. There's a couple of different ways that I'm going to go about this, but really I'm just going to kind of block in the colored parts, and I'm going to sort of extend beyond it because we're going to use Pathfinder in a little bit to cut those shapes out. So there we've got that. And here we've got this guy. Here I'm actually going to extend beyond just a little bit. Come into there. So I've already got that shape. Then here we're going to do the same thing. Just start outside, come in. Here I'm actually going to take it a little bit differently. That, just because we have a slightly different shape that we're working with. There we go. Okay, so now we've got all of that. And then here, I'm going to approach this very differently too. So here, I'm going to just ultimately end up using a stroke, and then I'm going to outline that stroke. So I'll just put those strokes in there, try to get it as centered as you can. Now, I mentioned that we would talk a little bit about corner widgets. Corner widgets are when you select a corner, you get this little round bit here. what that does is that rounds the corner a little bit. If you're not seeing that, you may need to come down here to view. And then let's see, you've got hide corner widget. You would need to select show corner widget. It would be there. Also, if you're finding that you're struggling a little bit to align your points and things, you may need to come down here and turn off snap to pixel and snap to grid. Those can sometimes lock the anchor points into only going into certain places. So here, I'm just going to round out that corner a little bit. And just so that I know the difference, I'm actually going to add the stroke here, increase the weight. And then really what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here, go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke. And what that did is that made that stroke a shape rather than it being just a single line. I'll do the same thing over here. Again, I'm just going to go a little bit beyond. Come back up. There we go. Flip that. Select it. Double the stroke. Object, Path, Outline Stroke. Oops, that time I forgot to do the corner widget. So pull that corner widget up. Object, Path, Outline Stroke. Command Z is your friend, guys. Let it be that. Cool. Now we can sort of come in. I'm going to fill in his shorts here. Like so. Let me turn off that fill. There we go. Then here we can do the same thing on this side. Now here is where it's going to get a little bit complicated because I want this to be pretty accurate. And then I'm going to use my corner widget over here to round off the shape. There we go. There we go. Okay, so I mentioned I was going to use corner widgets here. So I'm just going to select the corners that I want to round out a little bit. These are the ones. There we go. And then I'm going to grab these corner widgets and just pull them in a little bit. That way they're all the same radius. From there, I can add in these sort of bars here. I'll use my marquee tool. There's that. And there's that. I want to sort of see what my corner radius was. It's 0.0208. I did that by double clicking on the corner widget there. And I'm going to apply the same to all of these. Hang on. There's a better way to do this. So up here, there we go. Oops. There we go. Now all of those corner radii are the same. I don't have to worry about it at all. It's like very mathematical. Then here I can also come in. Oops. Key, don't use R. There we go. Rotate from there. Here we're going to have to modify the shape a little bit. I'm going to grab my anchor point here and just pull that in, pull this guy out like that, pull that in. There we go. Really, actually, there was a better way to do that. So let me do that. Again, so many different ways to do the exact same thing. I'm going to make the shape the width it needs to be. And then from there, I can actually use my shear tool to shear it so slightly. Bring it down. Might need to expand it a little bit. There we go. And then let's do the same thing. Let's apply our corner radius to that. Ooh, where is it? There's our corners. It moved on us. Okay, so if you ever don't find the corner radius up here, you can just go to help, stylize, round corners, drop it in there. And then it should do it. Here, I don't think it's doing it just because I had skewed it a little bit. So I'll just go in and apply it manually and then drop it in. There we go. So now that's all there. Let's take a look at our outline. We're starting to see it sort of come together. Now we got to work on his legs and his tie a little bit. So let's go ahead and add his tie. Start with this upper shape. Again, start a little outside here just because we're going to want to come in. Actually, these are really simple shapes. Let's do just our marquee tool. We'll draw a square, rotate it 45 degrees. And then really we just got to bring in the corner radius like that. And then we'll do the same thing for this guy. Rotate. Ooh, hang on, what's going on? There we go. Marquee, square, rotate 45 degrees. We'll sort of want to center this up to the key object. Nope, we want to select both of these. Align to selection. Put those things together. I'm going to pull this down just a little. There we go. Now we can extend this, but then bring this guy and this guy down a little bit. And then bring this in and that in. Those look a little asymmetrical, so let's try that again. We'll select both of them. And then we'll use our scale tool to bring those in evenly. There we go. So actually the illustration's a little bit off, so we're just going to try to keep that one true to form there. Then corner widgets, round that out, and voila, we have got a tie. I'm going to bring this one in a little further because for whatever reason, that one's really asymmetrical. All right, now we've got to work on his pants and his legs, and then we're done. So we're almost there. Here, let's just use our pen tool again. Just like that. All right, we're back. Everything's in. Now we need to start talking about coloring. Everything except for the splotches. We can come in and add these holes in a little bit. But let's start coloring. The best thing that I can probably recommend here is start from the inside and then work your way out. It's somewhat tempting to sort of start on the outside here and work your way in. Don't do that. Start with some of these much, much smaller shapes and then work your way out from there. So here we'll go with our black. Here we'll go with our blue. Black again. Here we'll go black, blue, black. I can select both of these at the same time even. This guy and this guy. We'll do white. Then we'll do black. Here we made this shape. Let's make it red. And then I'll show you how to cut that out in a little bit. Let's get all of our color applied. Here we want this to be black. Now, notice that our layering is a little funky. And actually first, let me start with this. Let's make this white. Let's make this. Ooh, okay, so here's an opportunity that I missed. We did not add his mouth palette color there. So we have actually another color red that we need. There we go. Let's add that right here. Click on that, change it to global. Now we're good. Come in here, make that the color. Then we can add his pink tongue color. Let's go in and add this shape. I did forget to add that. So as you're going, try to self-edit a little bit, recognize some of the things that you might have missed. Try to add them as you go. That way, everything looks tip-top. we go. That was a little bit of a different color. So there's that. Now we can make this black. But notice something. Notice how this is coming over his eye. So we may need to work with the layers a little bit and adjust those layers depending on how you laid them out. So down here, I'll come into my artwork layer and I'll find this element here that's been selected. And I'll just take that and drag it back behind the eyes, which I'm assuming are those guys. So there we go. Much, much better, right? Now we can come in here. Let's see what we got. Let's give him his eyelashes. Back up to our colors, make those black. Again, those are on top, so we might need to come into our layers and pull them back. Now, something to know is that you can also use the brackets, Command plus your bracket. So if I bracket to the left, notice how it's moving those layers, right? If I bracket to the right, it's going to bring it up. If I bracket to the left, it's going to send it back. And once you get it to the right spot, they'll actually look like they're behind his eyes. So there we go. We got that. Let's color his tie. We can select those, make them the right color of red there. Let's work on this. We can give him that. Again, we're going to need to work with these shapes a little bit. I can also use my eyedropper tool there. Let's do that. Now I want this shape to be back behind this one. So again, I'll just command bracket to the left till I get it behind the shape that I want. I'm pressing quite a few times in order to get it there. Now we can work on his shorts. Select all the whites, put that on top. Again, I'll need to command bracket in order to get that into the right spot, but now's the time to do it. There we go. Now let's make this one black. Actually, hang on. I didn't quite finish over here. Let's add these as our white. Let's make this, 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 and this, and this, and this, our proper yellow. Let's take this guy, make him white. There we go. So we have a little bit of layer adjusting that needs to be done. But now, if I'm not mistaken, do I have everything? Yep. So if I take this and I make it black, oh, we missed his shorts. All right, so that can stay black. That we can make brown, but this side was a darker brown. And then we've got our black bars here. There we go. We're looking a little like SpongeBob. He just needs a few holes, right? So let's send these guys back a little bit. Again, I'm just command bracketing until I see it get to where it needs to be. There we go. Okay. Perfect. We got a little bit of work to do here. We want to make sure that we've got black around his arm all the way. So I'm actually going to work on a separate layer. I'm going to turn this one off. I'm going to add a new layer here. And I want to fill this in so that it looks like it's black. Actually, I'm going to do that a little bit different. Let's do this. We're actually going to come back, get rid of that layer. I'm going to go Object, Path, Offset Path. We're going to go plus 0.25. No, it's too much. 0.025. 0.03. A lot of this is eyeballing, guys. Totally fine. Okay, that looks about right. Let's make that black. There we go. Yeah, good enough. Let's also take this and round out that corner just a little bit. All right. We also need to add these here to the brown category. Let's turn that off, make sure that our colors are looking right. Okay, so this guy here needs to be slightly off-white. It's a little bit of a light blue, like that. There we go. Our eyes are a little bit more perfectly circular than theirs are, but we got a good start. So let's now go in and use our pen tool one more time. The holes, I think, are going to be a little bit easier if we add to another layer. We can title this holes, and we'll merge them down in a little bit. But this way we can turn off the colored layer that we're working on and just work with these independently. And you know what? I'll bend the rule a little bit here. This might be a good opportunity for us to actually use the pencil tool so that we can just click, drag around the holes, kind of get that shape without feeling like they have to be super, super perfect. Just try to get as close as you can here. Go in, trace all of these holes the way that they ought to be. Spend your time with it. Try to get all of them. There we go. Fill this guy in. I'm going to go ahead and finish these out, get them colored, and then I'll see you guys back here and we'll go over how to Pathfinder all of this work. We've got all of SpongeBob's holes filled in, and now we can look at it in whole, and it's almost perfect. We're really, really close. So I want to take some time, and now we want to go in and sort of refine it. We want to make this perfect. If we go into outline mode, it's a little bit of a mess down here. I'm also going to turn off our background image just for this so that you can see what exactly we're looking at in the outline mode, right? So it looks like SpongeBob, but we've got this weird stuff underneath his eye here. This guy under here is kind of going in a weird spot. So now what we really want to start doing is refining. We want it to be what it ought to be, okay? So in order to do that, we're going to do what's called pathfindering. And essentially, if something is a shape like this, where it's kind of bleeding into the wrong end of the illustration there, let's see how that ought to look. So really, this green should go all the way up and all the way around. So there's a couple of different things that we can do here. One, we don't want this background stroke to be black here, but we want it to be black down here. So we really need to separate these in order to give it its proper coloration, right? So it's a good thing we actually put an offset path here, because I'm going to take this, I'm going to take my direct selection tool and I'm going to delete that path. And I'm going to extend this one outside of his sleeve there. And what I want to do is I want to use my sort of outside shape here to cut that off, okay? Let me also, let's do this. We want to modify that a little bit. Same goes for here. There we go. So what I want to do is I want to take my background shape and this sort of green blob that we put underneath here, and I want to go to Window, Pathfinder, and it's got all of these different tools. None of them are going to make any sense to you. So let me explain them. Unite is this first one here. It is going to unite two shapes or multiple shapes together. Okay, it's going to make those shapes into one shape. We'll use that at some point. Then you've got minus front. And what this is going to do is it's going to take the front shape, cut it out of the back shape, and get rid of the front shape. So you'll just have a hole in the middle there. What we're really looking for is divide. I want to divide the shape. And then I'm going to send that to the back and get rid of this on the edge, grab this guy, cut it out. Actually, we're going to need to unite that with this over here to make those one happy shape again. Why are we not joining? There we go. Okay, so now those are all one happy shape. Cut that out. come back, and now we've got a hole in SpongeBob. But up here, I can now make this that same olive green color, paste that back in. We need it in a certain spot. So I'm going to layer it back up. What are we doing? What's going on here? Oh, I know what's happening. There we go. Cut that out. Come here, paste that on top like that. Okay, so now we're mostly in the right spot. There we go. Let's curve this in a little bit. There we go. So you got to watch those shapes a little bit so that it doesn't poke out on you. And then here, what I'm going to do, because this we still want to be black, I'm going to pull this in a little bit. I'm just going to fake it. Pull that in, pull that in, pull that in. And now we've got our black arm and our green outline. Hopefully that's the right green. Let's take a look. Yep, pretty darn close. So now, oops, there we go. So now we've got a little bit more of a mess down here. We're going to grab this shape that we just cut and that shape, which is our background, and we want to separate this one. So Command X, and then down here, we want to paste in place, which is Command F. And then here, we're going to unite those so that that is all one shape again. Here we've got a little oopsie sticking out. So there's that. Pull this in too. And there we go. So now SpongeBob is a little cut in half, but it does the trick. We're actually going to get rid of this section over here, so I'm not too worried about it. But for right now, let's take this black cuff and this top half, and then this bottom half. And we're actually going to, let me first copy that so that I have it. Select both of these. And then now I'm going to minus front. Oops, no, hang on. Let's do exclude? No, trim. Let's try trim. Some of this is just a little bit of, excuse the French, but fuck around and find out. You're going to get it wrong a bunch of times before you actually get it right. So just be comfortable with that. Okay, trim was the right one. We just have to take this and send it to the back again. Take this, send that to the back. And then this is going to need to come up. So actually, let's send that to the back. But then this needs to go to the back also. You're going to get lost. It's okay. Let yourself get lost in it. That is completely normal. There we go. Really what I'm looking for is the correct layering more than anything else. Right here, I want to cut the top of his tie off using this guy right here. So what I can do is I can copy that shape, select that shape, and then let's go minus front. And then right here, we can come back, paste that back in, and voila, we're cooking with gas. Send that to the back. This is now its own shape, totally fine. We want to, let's cut this, paste it over top of that black shape, and then we're going to trim it. There we go. Let's bring this down so that it aligns. Actually, we'll just eliminate that anchor point and pull this back, which now should allow us to take this black shape and that shape and trim them. There we go. All of these look great and wonderful and perfect, so that is fine. This guy, we've got shapes going up into the top there, so let's select each of these. Let's just start with the white. Start with the white pieces. And this guy, and hit trim. There we go. You'll notice that we lost our black pieces, but they're still there. It's just the layering. So again, when you're in doubt, watch the layering. Take those, cut them, paste them on top of the white, send that back. And let's select that to trim. Trimming is going to be your worst nightmare by the time you're done with this. Oops. Okay, hang on. We did something wrong there. Okay, so we want these guys. What is happening? There we go. Cut those out. Paste. Send them to the back. Select that. Trim. Now we want to take those. Oops. Cut them. Paste them on top. There we go. Perfect. Now what we're going to do is sort of take these white shapes here and these black shapes. I'm going to double select to get into this white shape, and I'm actually going to minus front. What I'm doing is I'm cutting through it to get it to the back, so that really we don't have shapes overlaying shapes. All we have are sort of the underlying shape. It's just the white shape. So minus front there. And now all you've got are these white shapes, right? No black chevron in there. I'll do the same thing here with the shorts. I'll take that, minus front. Same thing here, take that, minus front. So now what it's doing is I'm cutting through it and it's revealing just what's underneath it. Since that is all one shape, I don't need the black shape there. All right, we've got something going on here. What are you? Oh, I see what's happening. All right, we want to select those, cut them, paste those on top, and then I want to use my sleeve here. You need to go behind the sleeve. Again, if I'm trying to paste in place, I'm just copying, Command C, paste in place, Command F. Oops, trim. There we go. You may need to do a little bit of ungrouping each time you do some of these things, but that's okay. All right, we got that. Now, let's take this shape. We want his eye to be behind his nose. And his eyes are his eyes are a little backwards at the moment. So first things first, let's take this red shape and copy it. And then we're going to select the white and the black there, and then minus front. Nope, that's not what we want. We want to, yeah, let's trim. Why not? That way we can hopefully get rid of these two. So his cheek comes in, and then we'll take these, send them back. Where are you? Send it back. There we go. Okay, and now we can layer this guy. Group. Nope, ungroup. X. There we go. Paste that behind that eye. Now we can take this shape and use it to trim that shape. We can actually unite this black and white, or these two sets of black there. Yep. There we go. Now that's all layered. We can take all of these eyebrows or eyelashes and unite that to make all of that one shape. Uh-oh, where's the whites? Hold on a sec. What do we got here? Should be that. All right, why is that not working? Let's pick the whites out there. Select all the blacks and unite. Then paste the whites back on top. There we go. Oh, that's why that didn't work. Okay, so now we'll bring this up and then use that. Let's copy that first. Minus front. Paste that inside. Send it back. Bring it back up a little bit. There we go. Use the same thing here. Take this. We're going to cut that out in just a minute, I think. Yep, okay. So paste that on top. Use that to cut it out. Paste again, send it back. And then we actually, how do I want to do this? I want the nose in front, but I want to cut out the eye. So this one I'm going to experiment with. We're actually going to drag part of his face over. And the problem that I'm seeing is we need to effectively get the nose out front. We might need to rebuild a part of this, but we'll see what ends up happening. I think I kind of built it backwards here. Yeah, as a matter of fact, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take these two black segments here, unite those, which did not do the ideal thing because it cut into his eye, but I'm going to take his eye. Oh, here's what's beautiful. I think. Nope. All right, I'm going to take all of these anchor points really quick. Here's a shortcut. I'm going to copy those. And then I'm going to unite this. I'm going to bring this up and use that to paste that. Copy that. Minus front. Paste this on top. Now I can take this color, hopefully recolor it. Paste that on top. Did it work? Not exactly. What's going on here? Okay, so let's subtract that. Subtract that. Bring this guy back around. Bring it around town for any SpongeBob watchers. There we go. So now his nose is in front, but we've got his mouth doing something a little strange here. All right, let's get rid of that. There we go. Okay, so now we've got, I think what we need, no, we need a black line going around there. So let's then take his nose, go object, path, oops, not outline stroke, object, path, offset path. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, that should do the trick. Go okay, make that black. But I don't need the whole thing. I just need part of it. So we are going to use the eye here to divide. Get rid of that. Now we've got that in there, which is perfect. Now we need to cut this off with the nose. So we will trim. And now we're in good shape. There we go. All right. Now he's looking a little bit like SpongeBob, huh? So let's see where we're at. These holes are the same color as this back here, so I can actually take all of these and that shape and just do minus front. Did that work? Yes, it did. Paste that there. Same thing with this squiggly line. We can take that, minus front, paste that back there. Oops. His hand is good. We need to offset path these lines, or I'm sorry, not offset path. We need to object, expand that path, outline stroke, and then we can, let's just try it. Let's try crop. Nope. Nope. Trim's not it. That's not it. One of these does it. Let's do divide. Command Shift Group. There we go. Same thing here. Divide. Direct selection tool to delete those. And by golly gosh, I think we might have done it. We're missing a little bit of shoe shine on him, but let's toggle into outline mode. Yep, we've done pretty darn good. Let's take these guys. There's another shape down here doing something. Ah, I see. Okay, sometimes you get these extra lines in here that are not really doing anything. Sometimes it's helpful to delete those, but be careful not to delete the wrong one. Here, it just looks like it got shifted over a little bit. So let's put it back in place. Probably just me moving a little too quickly, so just be careful with that. All right, and I think we might be golden. We can take this guy now and use that to trim. Oops. And send that to the back. And then we can even take this and unite. There we go. I think, ladies and gentlemen, we are done. Potentially. Yeah, I think we're done. So that's how you illustrate SpongeBob. So far, this has taken me about an hour and 45 minutes to complete. So no matter how you work on this, just take your time with it. Make it look good. If you do it right, it will thank you. We could even trim this down even a little bit more if we wanted to. We can minus front there, and then we could even take this and minus front again. So just try to Pathfinder it down to its simplest shapes. That's really what I'm trying to get you guys to see here is what are the shapes that you're working with and how can you make it work on a commercial level. So keep working with it. It's going to take some practice. If you have questions, feel free to reach out.